alive in the future. Now, let's talk a little defensive coordinator, Jacob. As you know, it sounds like we're inching closer to Jeff Hafley being gone in Green Bay, right? He's probably going to get the Miami Dolphins job. All the betting odds are through the roof. They have been from day one for John Eric Sullivan, who left the Green Bay Packers front office, to hire Jeff Hafley from Green Bay as his new head coach. There'll also be some other assistants who'll probably go with him. So this really kind of got interesting to me last night. You know who Ed Werder is? Covers the NFL for ESPN. You remember him? He's been an insider for quite some time, right?
Yep.
He mentioned a name last night, or at least he sent a quote tweet out, and it kind of got me going, does Ed know something we don't know? And Wisconsin Badger fans get excited, okay? It said, could Jim Leonhard be the Packers' next defensive coordinator is what we put here on Patreon. You guys know he is the secondaries coach in Denver that has an awesome defense this year as well, right? Ed Werder tweeted out, Packers could be contenders for former Wisconsin DC Jim Leonhard if current Green Bay DC Jeff Hafley is hired as head coach. And he had quote tweeted Parker Gabriel, perhaps worth noting that the Broncos secondary coach Jim Leonhard turned down the Packers DC job under Matt LaFleur in 2021 because he figured at the time he'd be at Wisconsin for the long haul. Now, pause, timeout. Some reports, rumors were suggesting that Mike Pettin, who was real close to Jim Leonhard, had told him, don't take the job with LaFleur because Mike Pettin and Matt LaFleur had a falling out as the defensive coordinator. Remember when they fired Mike Pettin, right? And he went to Minnesota to try to stick it to us. And I think he finally hung it up this year. Sorry it didn't work out there, bub. That's what happens when you go to the purple team up there. Yeah. But this was interesting because this tweet by Parker Gabriel kind of suggests, Jacob, that he just thought he was going to be in Wisconsin for the long haul. That's the reason he turned it down. It had nothing to do with maybe Mike Pettin being in his ear. With that being the case, if that was one of Matt LaFleur's top, obviously it was a top candidate. He offered it to him. It sounds like, I don't think he just turned down an interview. I think he offered it to him and he turned it down. Could Jim Leonhard be the next defensive coordinator in Green Bay? And I know you're a Wisconsin Badger fan. Listen, I've pushed back on this a little bit. I didn't think it was going to happen the first time. I ended up being right, but I pushed back and saying, like, guys, I understand he was a Wisconsin Badger. That's why you want him here. But this kind of feels like this has a little bit better chance of forming, And I think anytime you can get somebody that the fans will love and a former Badger, he played for the Badgers, he coached for the Badgers, right? This would be exciting stuff here with Jim Leonhard potentially being the DC. Again, throw him in the group of other potential candidates. How would you feel about him being the DC? I'll try to pull up the defensive stats and let you know where they rank this year.
I mean, I'd love it personally. Being a Badger fan is tough because they sort of kind of pull the rug from you every single year. You start out strong, and then all of a sudden, something happens, and it's being in the Big Ten, it's tough, man. We got a lot of powerhouses that we have to play against, but Jim Leonhard always put together an absolute stud defense. He just does. And can that transfer to the NFL level? Obviously, he's over there doing the secondaries coach, like you said, in Denver. But like, you got to be kidding me, says Leonhard wanted to be a head coach at Wisconsin. I don't know if that's exactly true, if that's what he, the reason why he ended up leaving. But it'd be, I think it'd be great. You have, like you said, a guy that just is from Wisconsin, understands the dynamic, understands what that means to that this group of fans. I mean, football is all we got up here, man. It really is. We got the Brewers, we got the Bucks. Yeah, sure. We don't have a hockey team, but football is in our blood in Wisconsin. It's just something different. It's what we lean on. And when it doesn't work out, it's tough, man. It's tough.
Yeah. 2-0 for this says, what if Jeff Hafley by some miracle pulls a Ben Johnson in Detroit and sees the potential of the defense and stays? And again, that's not off the table, right? 2-0 for this. It's trending toward him being the head coach in Miami, but it was trending heavy for Ben Johnson to leave. And you guys remember he decided to come back with Detroit, give it one more run as their OC. So really, really interesting there. Mark in the chat here. Good to see you, buddy. Says Jim Leonhard coached the #1 defense in the nation. Let's go. Let's get it. Let's talk about his history here a little bit, Jacob. So I just had AI pull it. And if there's any mistakes here that AI got, let me know in the chat. You guys correct it as we go. Jim Leonhard has transitioned from a standout 10-year NFL vet playing career to becoming one of the most respected defensive minds in both college and professional football. Below is the complete list of his coaching history. So he started in 2016 with the University of Wisconsin as a defensive backs coach. And then the next year, for the next 3 years, he was promoted to defensive coordinator and defensive backs coach, then defensive coordinator and safeties coach. So he was a DC from 2017 through 2022, it looks like. He was the interim head coach in 2022, last 7 games, and they had a 4-3 record in that time. Then he went to the University of Illinois as a senior football analyst, right? Then he goes to the Denver Broncos, back to the NFL, defensive backs coach and passing game coordinator. This year, assistant head coach and defensive passing game coordinator. So here's the other thing. Their DC up there, I'm trying to think of his name. Help me out. Is it Vance Joseph? I think it's Vance Joseph. Yeah. So if Vance Joseph gets a head coaching job, they will most likely promote Jim Leonhard to DC. So that would block us from being able to get him. Just want to put that out there before somebody mentions it. Now, how good has Denver's defense been this year? Passing defense, Jacob. Yards per pass attempt allowed. They're second best at 5.5. Guess who's number 1? Seattle. We seen that Seattle defense last night. They were buzzing, right? So as good as Seattle's pass defense looked last night against the Niners, where they just took belt to ass, they are 1/10 away from Denver. And again, passing game coordinator, that was Jim Leonhard. So this would be a good hire, man. I really like this. Yeah. That's kind of his history. Now, key coaching achievements was NFL success in his first season with the Broncos. He coached cornerback Pat Surtain to an AP Defensive Player of the Year award. So he was working hand in hand with Patrick Surtain. Obviously, he's the guy who got the interception on Christian Watson in that game that completely changed the tide there. Wisconsin defense during his tenure as defensive coordinator. Wisconsin consistently ranked in the top 5 nationally for total defense scoring defense awards. He was a finalist for the Broyles Award, the nation's top assistant coach in 2017, his first year as the coordinator. Interim record as the interim head coach. Obviously, he had a 4-3 record to secure bowl eligibility. So a little bit of clutch head coaching there down the stretch. So to me, man, this skyrockets toward the top. And we talked about this a little bit last night, you and I did, with some of the potential lead candidates. Jim Leonhard, right? Zach Orr with the Ravens. That's probably my least favorite of these. DeMarcus Covington in-house, if you want to keep everything intact and just promote your defensive line coach and run game coordinator to your DC. Bonda, the safeties coach with the Browns, is another young and up-and-comer. Chris Harris, who interviewed for the DC last time when we chose Jeff Hafley, he's the Jets DB coach and interim DC. That one takes a back burner to me. I'm not as interested in him. He may get an interview or two. Maybe he'll get a first or a second look from Matt. I'm not as impressed with that because the Jets defense was horrible. Now, they did trade the key players away. That's going to play into it. And then you got Aroha, if I'm saying that right, or Araho maybe, the Dolphins cornerback coach. So for me, if I had to choose out of these based off what we've talked about here, my top choices would definitely be Jim Leonhard and DeMarcus Covington out of that list. I'm kind of leaning toward Leonhard, Jacob, over Covington. I don't know how you feel, man.
Yeah, I honestly do agree with that. Nick Swain says, please, no inside hire. I kind of agree with that sentiment just because you need to bring in, I feel like, a little new blood to shake things up and just maybe give a little more inspiration, It just feels like that whatever we've been doing lately isn't working. Even, like we talked about it, man, the Hafley thing, it was so good on paper. And then when Micah was firing, we all thought that, man, this defense looks different. By the end of the year, he had a worse defense than Barry. Have you seen the stats where they compare him? Like, Barry had better numbers, which is crazy. And so, yeah, I do like the idea of the Jim Leonhard. I think that would be, great. I really do.
Yeah. Again, what it comes down to here, if it's between DeMarcus Covington and Jim Leonhard, a perfect scenario for me would be DeMarcus Covington doesn't get offered a DC job somewhere else. I don't know if that'll happen. He interviewed in Dallas. Obviously, Jeff Hafley would be very interested in taking him with him to Miami if he gets that job. But if you can keep him your defensive line coach and bring in Jim Leonhard as your new DC, to me, that's like a perfect scenario, right? If you could keep him and keep Ansley on as well. Now, Romero Hill asked a question, fellas, is Leonhard, if Leonhard was to become our DC, can he bring some Denver coaches with him? He can, but obviously you got to let people go. Now, that's going to happen by default. There's going to be a void created in the coaching staff because Hafley's going to want to take guys with him. I imagine he'll take Coach Ogabasi with him. He was with him at BC. He's here in Green Bay with him. I can see him taking him. He'll probably take either DeMarcus Covington or Derek Ansley as his DC. So that's going to free up a spot there as well. So to answer your question, if Leonhard were to become the DC, he would definitely bring coaches with him from Denver. Now the question becomes, of the coaches that stay, for example, if DeMarcus Covington doesn't get a DC job, let's say that Hafley goes with Covington, right? Or not Covington, he goes with Ansley and takes him as his DC. Let's say that happens. If that happens, then there's a chance that if you hire Jim Leonhard or anyone outside, they could come in and go, we don't want Covington. Now, if they bounce that off Matt LaFleur, and they have to because Matt LaFleur would be their boss. Now, in the negotiation, a DC may say, hey, the only request I've got other than the money that we've agreed on is I get total say in my defensive staff. That's a real thing. Matt may grant them that. There's a chance that Covington could get scrapped if you go with someone like Leonhard or Zach Orr or someone else. And I want to be clear here, Jacob. Zach Orr was one of my top candidates going into the last hire. I really liked Zach Orr, right? He's young. He's only 33 years old, one of the youngest coordinators. But their defense got their ass kicked in Baltimore this year. So that was his first experience as DC, and they ranked in the bottom half of the league in pretty much every important statistical category. So it's like, I don't know if I feel as excited about him. That's why I lean toward Leonhard and DeMarcus Covington. And then also, we'll get your take on this one more time. Raheem Morris is another one we talked about last night. That's another top candidate. So I would go, let's say Hafley's gone and Covington is obviously a choice. Ansley's a choice. My top choice would be Covington. It would be between Covington, Raheem Morris, and Jim Leonhard. Those would be my top three, to be honest with you. How do you feel about it, Jake?
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I mean, like, I don't know if there's a situation where B-Flow is available, but that would be another interesting prospect. Don't necessarily agree with the guy on some of the stuff he's done in his past, but he seems to be able to just – I mean, look at that Vikings defense. There's not a lot of – I don't want to say not a lot of talent, but like not a lot of names that would pop off the list. You know what I mean? But somehow he seemed to get the best play out of them. And it seems like he's done that wherever he went. Seems like a no nonsense kind of coach. I feel like that's kind of what we need. Hafley was great. I love the way that he was kind of like a motivator, a teacher, if you will, more of a, kind of like a mentor more than like a kind of shove it down your throat type coach. I think that we maybe need that. I think we need a little more grit coming back to Green Bay. I think that we need just, we're playing on the frozen tundra, man. We don't need sissies. We don't need babies. We don't need guys that are trying to mold, man. We need freaking coaches that will coach you into the dirt. And if you're not willing to stick up and make these plays, if you're going to Keyshawn Nixon it and jump out of the way to save whatever you want to save, whether it's your body, your reputation, whatever the frick you think you're doing there, that player never sees the field again. That's what I want from our defense. I want a hard-nosed, tough SOB that's going to go in there and start making, actual decisions that are going to make sure that everybody else on that roster knows that if you want to play on this team, you come in with your head down, and if not, you're not going to play. Like, that's what I want.
I think we would all agree too that one of the another byproduct, or a positive, I should say, that if the Packers were to get Brian Flores. And again, Flores would be my top choice. Let me be very vocal. I'm just assuming he's going to get a head coaching job. He's had 3 interviews. Actually, there's 3 different teams that he's the odds-on betting favorite to get the head coaching job. So chances are one of those 3, he will be the head coach. But if he's available, he would be my top choice, no doubt. But also, if you get an opportunity to weaken the Minnesota Vikings, because we know they want him back. Right. Oh, yeah. If he doesn't get a head coaching job, they're going to want to try to get him back. Kevin O'Connell loves him. He had a great defense. His defense was actually better than Jeff Hafley's defense this year in rankings, right? Hands down. So if you get an opportunity to outbid them and pay him more money, right, that would be a plus to snatch him away from Minnesota, right? So you don't have to face that again, and you upgrade your defense coordinator position as best you can. Whether there may be some people that think Hafley's a better DC than Flores. I get it. I understand. There's arguments on both sides, right? Like, Flores didn't have Micah Parsons this year. We've seen what Hafley's defense did without Micah Parsons.
Yeah, like Van Ginkel or whatever.
Right. And there's some players on the team, as you said it, I'm thinking, who all are on their team? And then I got to thinking, I'm like, I feel like they've got a bunch of very good players, but no like great players. You know what I'm saying? So
Jonathan Grenard, Van Ginkel, Harrison Smith, but nobody that pops off the screen.
That's right. He's obviously not the same player, but let's end this with a little. Well, first of all, if you guys are watching that video back later, let us know in the comments. What do you think about Jim Leonhard? I think I know how the majority feels about Jim Leonhard. You would love to have a former Wisconsin Badger be your DC. He's had success everywhere he's gone. The track record checks out everywhere he's gone, and now he's obviously taken Denver's secondary to a whole new level, helping Pat Surtain win that AP Defensive Player of the Year, and obviously the second best passing defense in terms of yards per pass attempt. Let us know in the comments what you think. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you're notified when we go live in the future. Let's have